My name is Clara, and I watched my brother deliberately smash my daughter's dreams on a polished gymnasium floor. Sophie, my 10-year-old, stood beside her robotics project, a complex machine she had spent 6 months building. It was the finals of the state's most prestigious science fair. Her little machine whirred, then sputtered. A loose connection. A simple fix. But my brother, David, saw an opportunity. He was a trustee of the academy hosting the event. Striding forward, he knelt down, not to help, but to mock. Having trouble, Sophie? He asked, his voice dripping with condescension. He tapped the robot's main circuit board, then with a sickening crack, snapped it in two. Guess some of us just don't have the engineering gene, he declared to the silent judges. My father, the Academy's founder and patriarch of our family, laughed from the front row, a loud, booming laugh that echoed more than the snap of the plastic. Some apples fall far from the tree. He announced to the crowd. Sophie's face crumpled. That was the moment my world, and theirs, shifted on its axis forever. They believed they were untouchable. What they didn't know was that the grand prize for this science fair, a $50,000 scholarship, was funded by an anonymous donor. They didn't know that the Academy's entire state-of-the-art technology wing was built by that same donor, and they had absolutely no idea that the donor was me. I had built my fortune in software development under a pseudonym, a name known only in elite tech circles. I kept my success a secret from my family not out of modesty, but for survival. In our family, my brother David was the celebrated heir, the face of our old money legacy. I was the quiet, overlooked daughter. My success would have been seen not as an achievement, but as a threat to the established order. So I gave back in secret. I became the Nightingale donor, the mysterious benefactor of the academy my father had founded. I funded scholarships, endowed chairs, and built laboratories. All while my family dismissed me as the unambitious one who had settled for a simple, quiet life. They were content with this narrative because it kept them at the center of the universe. That night, after the science fair, Sophie cried herself to sleep. I didn't cry. The part of me that felt hurt had been cauterized long ago. In its place was a cold, quiet engine of resolve. For years I had tolerated their slights against me, but this attack on my child was a declaration of war. A war they had no idea they were about to lose so spectacularly. The next morning, I made a single phone call, not as Clara the grieving mother, but as the Nightingale donor. I spoke to the headmaster of the academy. There has been a grave incident involving 2 of your trustees, I said. My voice calm and low. An emergency board meeting is required within 24 hours. My personal attendance is mandatory. The news that the reclusive Nightingale donor would finally be making a public appearance sent shockwaves through the academy. My father and brother arrived at the meeting smug and self-assured. They likely assumed the donor was some ancient, like-minded aristocrat who would commend them for putting my daughter in her place, they thought. I was at home, comforting my child. I walked into the boardroom last. My father saw me first, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. Clara, this is a private meeting. My brother didn't even look up from his phone. The headmaster stood. Everyone, I'd like to thank you for coming. And it is my distinct honor to finally introduce you to the patron who has secured this academy's future. Our Nightingale donor, Ms. Clara Vance. The pseudonym I used for my company was Vance. I watched the color drain from my father's face. David's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. The air in the room became thin, electric. The balance of power didn't just shift. It shattered. I was no longer the disappointing daughter. I was the one who owned their world. Thank you, headmaster, I said, taking a seat at the head of the table. I called this meeting to discuss the events of yesterday's science fair. I turned my gaze first to my brother, David. Your position as a trustee is predicated on upholding the values of this institution. What value? Were you demonstrating when you deliberately destroyed a child's project? He stammered. It was a piece of junk. It malfunctioned. It was the work of a 10-year-old girl who poured her heart into it, I countered, my voice like ice. A project built in the very technology lab that my money, not yours, created. I then turned to my father. And you, father. Your title of founder emeritus comes with a responsibility to inspire. Was your public mockery of your own granddaughter inspirational? My father, for the first time in his life, was speechless. He looked around the room for an ally, but found only the stunned faces of board members who were quickly realizing who signed their checks. These actions are a profound embarrassment to the Academy, I stated, and they will have consequences. You can't do this, David finally managed to say. We are this Academy. Our name is on the wall. Names can be removed, I replied softly, and that is my first condition. Edward Porter's name will be stripped from the main hall, effective immediately. David Porter. You will tender your resignation from the board by the end of the day. Or what? David spat, a flash of his old arrogance returning. Or the Nightingale Endowment, all $80 million of it, will be transferred to our rival school, Westgate Prep, by morning. Along with a public statement explaining exactly why, the threat landed with the force of a physical blow. The headmaster paled. The other board members began whispering frantically. Furthermore, I continued, the Academy will issue a formal, public apology to Sophie. And the $50,000 scholarship prize will be awarded to her, along with a newly created grant in her name to fund the projects of other young girls in science. My family was trapped. They had built their identity on the prestige of this academy, and I was threatening to burn it to the ground with them inside. That afternoon, the Academy released a statement. It announced David's resignation due to conduct unbecoming of a trustee and detailed the creation of the Sophie Vance Grant for Young Innovators. My father's name was quietly painted over in the main hall. The revenge was not loud. It was administrative, institutional, and absolute. They tried to confront me at my home that evening. How could you? My mother wept, her loyalty predictably with them. You humiliated your own family. No, I corrected her. I held them accountable. There is a difference. David tried to push past me. You think you've won. You have no idea what you've started. Oh, I think I do, I said, closing the door in his face. The true victory was not in their downfall, but in what we built next. Sophie and I worked together to design the criteria for her grant. She was no longer a victim, she was a benefactor, a leader. Seeing her interview young, bright-eyed girls and hearing her talk with them about their ideas healed a part of me I thought was gone forever. We launched a foundation under the Vance name, pouring millions into STEM education for underprivileged girls across the state. We built maker spaces in low-income neighborhoods and funded mentorship programs. We created everything my family, with all their resources, could have done but chose not to. They hoarded their legacy, we gave ours away. My father eventually sent a letter. It was not an apology, but a lament. I don't understand the world anymore, he wrote. I don't understand you. He was right. He didn't. He understood power that was inherited, loud, and arrogant. He could not comprehend power that was built in silence and wielded for justice. My brother, stripped of his title and influence, became a ghost in the social circles he once dominated. His arrogance had been his only currency, and without the backing of the Academy, he was bankrupt. He had built his identity on a name, and I had taken that away with a checkbook. Sophie thrived. With the grant and a newfound confidence, she went on to win the National Science Fair the following year. A journalist asked her who her biggest inspiration was. She looked straight into the camera and said, "My mom. She taught me that the best way to fix a broken system is to build a better one next to it." I never needed their approval after that. The respect I craved was not from them, but from the young girls we were now empowering. Each scholarship we awarded, each lab we built, was a brick in a new legacy, one that had no room for the cruelty and elitism of the old one. The final, quiet revenge came a year later. The Academy, facing financial strain after my redirected though not fully withdrawn endowment, formally renamed their technology wing. It was no longer the Porter Wing, it was now the Vance Center for Technological Innovation, my pseudonym had officially replaced their legacy. My name is Clara Vance, and I watched my brother and father try to break my daughter. They thought their power was absolute. But they forgot one simple rule of engineering: a faulty foundation cannot support the weight of its own arrogance. It was destined to crumble. And I was simply the one who chose the time and place for its collapse. Now, I want to hear your story. When did you realize that the power to change your life was in your hands all along? Tell me about a time you turned a moment of humiliation into a source of your strength in the comments below. And if you believe in building a new world from the ashes of the old one, subscribe to Revenge with Any.